I was always limited in my mindset of what I could do and how much I could really achieve, David. I don't know what you got going on here, but I think I want to try. I realized that I had not given myself a full chance.
I remember, Courtney, you were like, Trista, I am terrified. And I was like, it's okay. I was terrified once as well.
So Valerie, she asked me one day, she's like, have you really given it 100%? Like, can you tell me that you have? And I'm like, get your cup of coffee and just pretend like you're talking to your best friend. And I didn't want to quit my job because I love what I do.
And the calls are a lot smoother because you built that trust with the previous client. It was a family member, right? And majority of us trust our family members, right?
Referrals is huge. Agents who make over $200,000 a year in commission.
I was going to fail. And in my mind, there's no option for failure. We don't fail. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Because I was so nauseated. I didn't know what was going on.
I am Trista Giancotti, and I am the training specialist and sales trainer with Jumpstart Go, and I am super excited. Hey, Valerie, Courtney, how are you guys doing?
Doing well, Trista. How are you?
I'm doing well. I think you guys are in a little bit of a heat wave where you guys are located at, right?
Actually, your heat wave is our cold wave. It is.
It's freezing over here right now.
Oh, no. Oh, no. So without further ado, I'm going to ask these two lovely ladies to introduce themselves so you guys get to know who they are just a little bit before we dive in. So, Valerie, I'm going to start with you. Tell us just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and just give us some secrets, girl.
Thanks for having me, Trista. I'm really honored to be here today. My name is Valerie Mertz. I'm from Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm 39. I have an 18-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son and a fiance of, 7 years or so. I started the insurance business. May will actually be 4 years. I had no background in sales. I come from restaurant business, managed a restaurant for a few years. Then I stepped down because I wanted to have more time with my children, more time with my family. So I actually stepped out of the management role and just became a server. And I said, hey, listen, I'm your Monday through Friday girl, 9 to 5. I don't want to work nights. I don't want to work weekends. I really just wanted to be with my children as much as possible in all their sports, their extracurricular activities. I coached them in soccer. I had missed out on a lot of that. As many people know, I do have a checkered background, right? So I was always limited in my mindset of what I could do and how much I could really achieve. And I was pretty set on just waiting tables for the rest of my life. Yeah, I was literally making round about $1,000 a month, if that. And David Price had approached me on numerous occasions. I'm like, David, that's not for me. Like, I can't do this. And he had actually hired me, paid me $100 a day. I was his door greeter. I was set with that. I'm like, hey, I would actually ask for off at the waitress job to go be his door greeter, greet these agents that were licensed and looking for another opportunity. I'd smile and wave, like I got my little $100 and went home.
Yeah.
Went on about my day, and I was good with that. It was also, my fiance was doing pipeline work. So he was the main source of income. So it never really occurred to me until probably about 6 of those opportunity meetings in. And I'm like, David, I don't know what you got going on here, but I think I want to try. He said, okay, great. Sent me the information for Excel to get my license, to get, through the course. And I'll never forget, I called David. I opened up chapter 1 and I said, David, these are not even real words. I can't even get back to chapter 1. I don't know what you have got me doing. Like, this is crazy. I can't do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I sat on that for 29 more days until I got a renewal email from Excel. I started questioning myself. Did you actually give yourself a chance? And the answer is no. If you really know me personally in life, I don't do things halfway. I'm all in, right? That could be a good thing and that could be a bad thing. But I realized that I had not given myself a full chance. So I paid and I renewed the course and I sat down. I literally wrote down chapter by chapter, handwritten, because that's the way I learn. I have to read it and write it and read it and write it multiple times just to get past the chapter.
Yeah.
Eventually I did, obviously. It took me a month. I remember heading to go take my test. And I don't suggest this, but I was driving and taking my quick test at the same time on the way to the testing center. I just knew like there was something I was missing, right? So I stressed out and I ended up passing my test with an 87. And from
Awesome job.
it's just been, what's next, right? Been willing to learn something new. I was probably 2 months into the insurance, and I mean, I told David for the first 2 months, like, I'm not quit serving. Like, this is what I'm set to do. I'll do the insurance business part-time. And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, David, I make great money doing banquets. That was once a month, and I probably made $150 every time I waited on this one party. But that's what my mindset had set me to do, right? I had that set, we call it a poverty mindset, right? And it's
that lack mindset.
Correct. That was my ceiling. And so I would sell a couple policies, and then after, I'm like, I put in my 2 weeks notice and I left the place. Do I miss it? Yes. Do I love what I do now? Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Valerie. I didn't know all of that about you. So I'm looking at me. I'm over here learning. But I love how you were able to recognize in just that few short amount of time, like, man, you were happy, you were content, but then you went for it and you asked yourself a question. Did you give it your all? And you were able to answer that truthfully to say, yeah, no, I didn't. And you didn't want to live with that regret. And you didn't want that to be your ceiling anymore. So you took that chance and you went for it. And I can probably answer this for you, but it was probably one of the best decisions you ever made, right, Valerie?
It has been hands down one of the best decisions I have ever made.
Yeah.
It's flown around again, hey, go back waitressing. And I'm like, I sit there for 5 hours and I could make $400, $500, or I can just dive into the insurance business, do what I'm passionate about now, help a family not go through the same things I went through 5 years ago, and make way more money in those 5 hours than I would serving lobsters.
I love it. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Valerie. All right. Your turn, Miss Courtney. She's like, uh-oh. I never know, you guys. I have both Valerie and Courtney in Producers Academy. We're going to talk more about that here in a minute. I just never know what I'm going to get with Courtney. I don't know if I'm going to get laughing so hard that I am like in tears, or she's in tears because she's crying. I just never know what I'm going to get with her. I love it. I love it. She's so spontaneous. So, Miss Courtney, tell us a little bit about who you are before we dive in today.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for having me, Trista. I appreciate it as much as I'm nervous about it, but it'll be fine.
You got this.
So I started out through Valerie. I actually cleaned houses for 12 years before I started doing this. And then the last 2 years, I took care of an elderly couple. He ended up passing away, and then I was out of a job. So I was home for like about 6 months. And, you can only clean house and cut yards and, clean as much as possible,
Right.
And then it was like, okay, what do I do now? And Valerie and I were friends previously before, jumping into this with her. And she would post on Facebook, looking to people to hire. And I was like, oh, look, my friend's hiring, go work for her. And one night I'm laying in bed and I'm like, Courtney, maybe you could do this. So I messaged her. I'm like, hey, like, what do you do? And so she explained it to me and I'm like, you think I can do it? And she's like, well, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, send me the stuff. So I kind of did like her when I first got it. I was like, okay. And then one day it was like, okay, I've got to sit down and do this. So 2 weeks, did my thing, took my test, passed it. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And she's like, well, we're going to go to work. And I'm like, oh, okay. Here's your iPad. Let's roll. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got this, So it was a lot of hands-on training. We went in the field first, hated it, did not like it. I'm like, there's no way I am doing telesales. Then I did telesales and I was like, I'm bored. I am ready to get out of my house. So I went back in the field and I stayed a field agent for over a year because I started September of 2021. So last year was my first full year of doing, insurance. And we were in the field the whole year, really, until January of this year is when I did the whole transition after Closers Click and then, starting Producers Academy and everything. I'm married. I'm 44. I'm from Lafayette. I have 2 boys, 25 and 15. Yeah, I'm a mom, wife, business owner. So it's good right now.
Awesome. That's super, super exciting. And it's such a pleasure to just to have you guys on and just for you guys to share your story a little bit. So thank you both for saying yes. I really, truly appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit. So Valerie, you and I met, actually I met both of you guys for the first time in person. I've heard a little bit about some of you guys prior from Bianca because you guys all work together, but I actually got to physically meet you guys in person in Miami this past December. And Valerie, you and I were talking, and it was an intense 3 days that we were there. Would you guys agree? It was an intense couple days there, right?
Very much so.
Thought it was going to be a boring insurance conference. Not.
It was
Yeah.
nothing. There was not one moment of boring, right, Courtney?
Not at all.
Not at all. Insurance is not boring. You just
It's
interesting every single day. You never know what you're going to get, right? So I got to meet you, Valerie, in Miami, and we really started talking and just all through some of the trainings that I had done, some of the trainings that Elle and David Price was there talking about mental toughness. And so you really shared with me just about having really no goals. You were just, in your terms, winging it, right? You're like, Trista, I've mastered getting up and just winging it for the day. So much to the point that when we were doing quarter 1 planning, take us to that moment, Valerie, when you were doing that quarter 1 planning and we are asking you to come up with goals. We're asking you to think outside of the box, to stretch. Where did you want to be as a team? Where did you want to be as an agent? Where did you want to be as an agency owner? To that feeling that you were feeling in those moments. Take us there. Take us back to that time back in December, Valerie.
I'm glad you brought it up, Trista. So I started doing a lot of self-development about 9 years ago. And basically I've learned that, today, if I walk out the house and I fall in the mud, it's okay. Just wipe it off, keep going, go change, just keep going with a routine. So my day-to-day agendas were never set. It was kind of like, wake up, how am I feeling today? What's going to happen? Who's going to need me? Where, and I kind of like Play-Doh, I'm just molded into how the day works, right? And I don't have a calendar. I actually purchased a calendar. I put it on my wall, never used it once. We have made it through December. It is still hanging on December. Okay. And that's just how my life really had been. It was just day to day, okay, what do I need to do? Just wing it, right? I'm there. Now, go to Miami. It's great. We're like day 2 in. I am just exhausted. My brain is done. I had no idea that it was that intense, right? I'm looking at Courtney like, oh my God, she is going to be so mad at me that I got her involved into this and it's just so long. But the last day, and I'm like, okay, here we are the last day. Thank goodness I'm ready to get home back to my kids. It's long. It's intense. Let's do quarter planning. And I'm like, Bianca, can I cheat off of your paperwork? And she's like, no. And I'm like, help. So, we do the small, month to month and I can get that done. And then it's like, okay, where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? And I'm like, holy crap. I don't know. Where are my kids going to be in 10 years? My youngest is going to be 24. He'll probably be out the house, but I want to do some land. Do I want to be in this city or this city? There's a lot of things that go into 10-year planning that I have never, ever thought about. It's never crossed, not even 5 years, right? I'm a day-to-day girl, and that's just how it is. So, we're going through the quarter planning and the monthly's good. And then it's like, hey, break it down per quarter. Okay, great. I hit 10 years and I broke down crying. I just stressed, just emotional. Like I have no idea where my future is going to go. And Elle was just so kind to be like, thank you all for coming. Mastermind is over. Y'all have a great time. If you want to join, Producers Academy, get with Trista. And I am like in tears, just hanging. I have no idea where I'm going after today, right? I have this paper in my hand. And as a matter of fact, I never finished that paper. I talked about with Courtney Friday, right? I have the paper. It is still nicely folded, just the way I folded it when I walked out of that house that day. I never reopened it. However, I knew that my complacency would have stayed that way if I didn't do something different. February came. I barely worked in December. I didn't work in January because I actually lost my brother, which was a tough time. And February came. And I remember calling Trista and just like, hey, listen, this is where I'm at. I'm not broke, but if I don't do something different, I'm going to be in a bind.
Mm-hmm.
And you helped me break that down by week by week and how much I needed to actually produce in each week and what my goal was. And that's when it was like, bam, I was able to do it. I followed it. I set my mind to it. I did a lot of time blocking, which absolutely helped. I don't ever like asking anybody for help. My mom has always been there. She's my biggest supporter, but I had to lean on her. She would pick up my son from school, bring him home. She started help cooking dinner, things of that nature. And it made it so much easier. And I wasn't in a bind within 14 days.
Yeah. I remember that, guys. I remember, and I love what Valerie said, is that she can continue to just allow the days, the months, the weeks, the years to pass on by and be complacent and be okay with where she was. But deep down, because of an exercise that was very hard for her in Miami, it left her to wanting to figure out more. Does she have the 10 years planned out yet? No, and that's okay. But at least she's got goals now that she set for month 1, month 2, month 3, and then we're able to then take those goals and then let's break those down into simpler goals. Let's break those down into weekly goals, break those down into daily goals. But the biggest thing there was that she was tired of being complacent. She was tired of just letting the day take her wherever the day was going to take her, but that she was going to be in control of the day and set the goals. And it was that moment where I think for you, Valerie, that your back was really up against the wall. Like you're like, okay, this is what I have to do. Like this has to work. Like some things have to change, whatever it needs to be. You were coachable. You allowed yourself to be held accountable. I remember in those times where every single day, that month of February, those 15 days where you had to hit a goal every single day, guys, Valerie put herself in a position to where she was texting me. I did this many DAOs. I did this many presentations. I sold this many final expense plans for senior life. This is what I did. And it was that level of accountability that she had that then got her to that next level to where, guys, she is on track, guys, for a record-breaking month for the month of March. And would you say, Valerie, had you have not done those things, if you would be where you are right now?
I would not.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
not. And in February, I hit one of my highest, my PR, and didn't work at all December or January. So none of it was post-dated business. Everything was ASAP business in the month of February, and did our highest month. This month now we are on track to at least probably about double it. So
yes.
I'm excited.
As of right now, guys, Valerie's team, this is a number. She texted me this morning with her numbers. As of right now, her team, $54,341.64 in issued business. Congratulations, Valerie. Guys, you know what excites me more than that number is that number represents so many families that are properly protected with the final expense coverage, so that when something happens to them, their loved ones are not going to be able to be stuck having to do a GoFundMe account or figuring out how to raise the money or taking out a loan, because you were willing and put things into place so that your team could achieve greatness, so that you could achieve this greatness, and so that you can protect as many families as possible, that you and your team. I love it, Valerie. That is huge. Like you just said it, you're about to triple what your best month was last month. So like, way to go. So tell us a little bit here really quickly, what did that look like? So what did that look like from the time that you woke up? You made phone calls, because you were transitioning too, from going from the field to driving hours and hours to different places, knocking on doors, to now sitting at home at your desk, pounding out phone calls. Take us through that. Like, what did it look like? What was your activity like during the day? Making phone calls. What did that look like for you, Valerie?
So I had to time block. I bring my son to school. I pick him up from school. He's got soccer practice 3 days a week. We got tumbling. So I literally had to time block. This is my dial time start. This is when I stop. This is when I restart. This is when I stop. Possibly an hour later if I could dial on the West Coast, right? So I would try to at least hit 100 dials a day. 75 is what we agreed upon, but my goal was to do 100 at least, if not more. So I never stopped at my dial amount. I stopped when the time was over, right? And so I was always wanting to do at least 3 presentations. I at least wanted to make a sale. I started asking for referrals. That was another thing that I was shortchanging myself on, is not even asking for referrals, because I wasn't even sold on myself at some time, right? So why would I ask for that referral?
Yeah.
So that was something else I had to learn during all this time of setting the time blocking and those goals, right? So I would dial 3 times, dial back to back, back to back, back to back. I just would not stop. I was not stopping until that time came, because I knew when 8:00 p.m. Central Standard Time came, could not text Trista 10 dials, because I couldn't. You put in a lot of work for me, right, to help me create that goal list, that list. I would just been embarrassed to text you anything smaller than what we agreed upon, right? I'm an all in or go home kind of person. And I was kind of like, hey, I'm going to do this and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
My production increased tremendously, and so did my confidence.
I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing, Valerie. All right, I'm going to move over here to your teammate for a few minutes here, Miss Courtney. Woo-hoo. Miss Courtney, take us back to you as well. Were in Miami. I remember, you had known about the Producers Academy. For those of you guys who are watching, it's a 12-week intense sales intensive. Okay, so they are in training. They get me, and I am teaching all things sales, overcoming objections, how to close more deals on the first call, how to build centers of influence. It's intense. I think it's intense. There's homework that's due every single week, and I don't like missed homework assignments. And so Courtney's like, yep, I know. And so I don't like missed homework assignments, but you had known about it from Bianca, and you had seen the success that some of her agents were having. And so I remember you approaching me and said, I don't care what the cost is. I don't care. You just tell me, how do I get into it? And in my head, I remember walking away thinking, she's going to regret this. Like, she's going to regret being so excited. No, I'm just kidding. But take us to, like, you as well were knowing that you were coming back and you were going to be going into uncharted territories, because you were a field agent. You were very comfortable with being out in the field, very comfortable, you said, with building rapport, because you were in their house. It was easier for you. You're able to reach out, touch your client, all that kind of stuff. To now you were going to be at home where there was distractions, to where things could pull you from the right or to the left, but that you were bound and determined to make this telesales work, because you had set goals for yourself. But I remember, Courtney, you were like, Trista, I am terrified. And I was like, it's okay. I was terrified once as well. So you can do it. And so take us to that, like, walk us through that. Let these people that are watching, that maybe are thinking about that transition too. Like, man, I'm in the field, but I've been hearing so much about telesales and selling over the phone. Take us to what you went through, and what was that aha moment for you that was like, I got this, I can do this. Take us there, Courtney.
Okay. So kind of like what Valerie was saying, when we went for a mastermind in Miami, I mean, it was amazing. Didn't think we were going to do as many tiers as we did. And, we really touched on a lot of things while we were there, but it was for the better for all of us, because we have come out of this so much more better than we were when we got there, for sure. So came home, holidays, things kind of, and then my mom got sick, and I was a full field agent. Well, my dad had recently passed away in October, and both of my brothers had passed. So it's just her and I left. And when she got sick, I'm it. I don't have anybody to fall back on to help with my mom. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to do telesales. I just, so between taking care of her coming home, being here with me for, almost a month in my house, it was super difficult and super hard. So fast forward, she gets better. She goes back home. So I'm still, working on the telesales, and I'm like, man, and so Valerie, she asked me one day, she's like, have you really given it 100%. Like, can you tell me that you have? And I'm like, no, I haven't. She's like, well, look, let's do it 100% and try. So I was like, okay. I remember that first day when I was like, that's it, Courtney, do not get out of this chair. You are going to dial. And I sat there and I looked at my phone for 4 hours. I had the phone number typed in, I had the button there, and I just looked at it. And we were doing our virtual call center, and they're like, you dialed? And I'm like, I'm trying. And they were like, what do you mean you're trying? I'm like, I don't have I can't hit the button. I don't know what's wrong with me. So I literally sat there for 4 hours just looking at my phone. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I mean, you go knock on strangers' doors all day long and you can't hit a button. Like, what are they going to do? Hang up on you? I mean, come on, Courtney, get it together. So I was like, okay, hit that button, made my first sale. And it was like, what? I'm like, no way. And then after that, it just snowballed. It was like I had better days sitting at my desk than I did for weeks and weeks and weeks being away from my family, working in the field. And it was like, well, man, that was a hard lesson to learn. It took me that long to realize I can make more money sitting at my desk and help more families than I was in the field. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did great in the field and I loved it, but I just didn't have that confidence that these people were going to believe me over the phone, And I mean, it was amazing how, I guess it is kind of the same. Every time I pick up the phone to call somebody, it was like, okay, Courtney, you're calling your best friend and we're going to have coffee talk. Like, get your cup of coffee and just pretend like you're talking to your best friend. And that's what I did. And it was just so easy. And so, as the weeks went on and stuff, it was like, I will never go out in the field again. Ever will I go out in the field again. Like, what? I mean, evidently I'm a slow learner, Trista, because this, and I'm a smart girl, but it was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, we've killed it being on the phone. I mean, I'm just starting to grow my agency. I was a slow learner on that as well. But David Price was like, okay, Courtney, what you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, David, what are you doing? But once I hit my year mark, my biggest supporter is my husband. And he's like, babe, you got this. You got this, So I was like, okay, well, here we go. I'm going to dive in. And I did. I dove in with building a business, plus mastering the telesales, plus, life in general. It's like, okay, you get thrown all these hot rocks and you dodging them, hitting it, but you make it work. And I can make it work better being home than I can out in the field. Like, with my mom getting sick, I had no other option. I didn't have another option. It was either that or I had to quit my job. And I didn't want to quit my job because I love what I do. I love helping families. I love having that, client call me, my little 80-year-old client call me and say, Courtney, how I changed the batteries in my remote. I'm like, that's how and I explain, okay, baby, thank you. I love you so much. And click, so every time she needs to change the battery, she calls me and that's fine, but it's things like that make my heart happy because, they think about me to call me for something like that, so it just, I've grown a lot of confidence, especially since doing, the Closers Click, and then especially with Producers Academy. Nailing that one call close has just been that's been my go-to, and it will continue to be my go-to. Producers Academy is amazing. Like, I'm sad it's going to be ending soon. I really am. I told you that the other day. Like, I'm like, when does it end? And she's like, April. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, extend it? Please. Like, look, as scary as it was, it has been like the best 3 months ever. The best 3 months ever. Having the connections with the people in there and being on such a different connection other than insurance has been amazing. And I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, she's coming back. You guys heard it.
Back for more.
Coming back. I can tell you round 2 is harder than round 1, so get ready.
Well, you know what, Trista? Bring it. I'm ready.
Bring it. You guys heard it. You guys heard it live. Courtney has challenged me to bring it. So
now when we do our first training call and I'm crying, I'll remember these words, okay?
Exactly. I'm going to say, you remember telling me to bring it. So I'm bringing the heat, Courtney. I'm bringing it. I'm so excited. Awesome. It's been such an amazing opportunity for me to be able to be on the sidelines watching both of you guys achieve the very things that you guys have set out to achieve, and to see that both of you guys have the confidence that both of you have grown in. For Valerie, the confidence of being that agency owner and setting goals for herself, and to not allow the day to take control over her, but for her to take control of the day. And then for Courtney to really go into it and say, okay, I'm gonna tackle this telesales thing. And I remember, guys, the one time I was talking to Courtney, and when she had her best month, it was the best month, and she like did more than she's ever done in the field, just from being at her home behind a computer, putting in the activity, putting in the dials. Oftentimes I hear all the time, like, oh, well, I'm just not seeing the results. Well, my question is, what type of activity are you putting in? Because, on Fridays and by 9 p.m., Courtney, Valerie, they're sending me their production sheets, their activity sheets, and I'm looking at them like, okay, Courtney put in 87 dials today. She sold 2 policies. Valerie's put in 106 calls today. She's done 5 presentations. But the biggest thing too was that in the month of February, we did a challenge where you guys were asking for referrals. And talk to us a little bit, Valerie. Tell me a little bit about your change of asking for those referrals, then to call those referrals and not having to just rely on a lead source or buying leads, but to say, hey, listen, if I helped you, then I'm going to get these referrals from these clients. Talk to us a little bit about how referrals has been a game changer for you, Valerie.
So before, I wasn't getting referrals, and I was just relying on my lead source, which is obviously Senior Life Insurance Company, right? Which it made every call more difficult, because you have to continuously build that rapport with the new lead, right? Build that trust, gain that trust. And so, and you're paying for each lead. So you have a cap basically of what you can, make off of that one person.
Mm-hmm.
But maximizing your lead by at least 3 referrals per person that you speak with, there's no cap anymore. There's no ceiling, right? And the calls are a lot smoother because you've built that trust with the previous client, whether it be their mom, dad, brother, sister. It was a family member, right? And majority of us trust our family members, right? So if I call my cousin and say, hey, listen, this is who I have auto insurance from, you're going to trust that I have made that best decision, right?
Right.
Because obviously I pay this person. So that the trust is already there within the agent, transferred from one family member to another. So it's kind of like, hey, listen, so I was able to sit down with your mom, and this is what we put into place, right? Let's do the same thing for you. And it just goes down the line to where you have the whole family covered. They all trust you. Now you're invited to their lunch, their dinners, their home to have, to eat. It's the greatest thing ever. I love it. It's really so easy. Just got to do it.
Yeah, that's it. You just have to do it, right? And that's so many insurance agents. You guys, I want to talk to you just for a moment about something. Referrals is huge. Actually, agents, there's a statistic out there. I've shared it with them in Producers Academy. I've shared it in TCC. I've shared it anytime I talk to agents, is that agents who make over $200,000 a year in commission, that means money in their pocket, their number 1 lead source. Number 1, not number 2, not number 3, but number 1 lead source is referrals. And so, Courtney, talk to us a little bit about that transition to really starting to ask for referrals, putting that into your sales pitch to be able to ask for those referrals, to be confident to ask for those referrals, and how that's really been a game changer for you.
So I have never asked for referrals before. I was like Valerie, I went off of our lead source with Senior Life, and if there was a referral that happened to be in the house I was in, well then, hey, great job. If not, moving on to the next. It's getting out of my comfort zone is where I struggled at the beginning, because I did, making that first dial. But once I got that first dial in, it was like I was a nonstop. It was constant. Like, supper, who's hungry? You're on your own. Clothes, I'll do that this weekend. Like, dog's hungry, somebody else feed her. Like, I zoned out. like everything in my life. And I focused solely on telesales because I knew I had to master what I was doing. Because if not, I was going to fail. And in my mind, there's no option for failure. We don't fail. You know, we might fail, but that's just a learning tool to be able to succeed to the next step that you want to get to. And so I just, like I said, I zoned in, and it was like, okay, this is how many dials I need to do, presentations, sales, and I have to start asking for referrals. Now, when I asked the first time, he was a super nice man. Thank you, Jesus, because if not, I probably would not have asked. I was so nervous to say, hey, and I blamed it on Valerie. So my boss makes me, at the end of every call, ask for 3 people who I can possibly bless, that like I just blessed you, you know? And he was like, boom, 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 boom. He gave me like 4 or 5 people. And I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, because I was so nauseated. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, oof, it made me like, I got super hot. And then it was like, okay, once again, Courtney, you're a smart girl. That was not difficult. Like, get it together. You know, it's just getting out of your comfort zone of what you're not used to doing. It's like, this is the easiest thing in the world. You know, it really was. So it's just, and it's repetitious. It's just an automatic in your presentation to just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
I love that. And the thing is so crazy. It's like
harder than they really are. Like, our minds, we make them so much harder than they really have to be. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back is, number 1, they're scared. Number 2, they don't have the confidence. And number 3, they're just jump, just do it. You know, just do it, just jump.
That's right. I always say jump and grow your wings going down, right? There's no reason. Fear. And then I always say this, jump first, fear later, right? Because if you jump first, when you land, you're going to realize there is no reason why you should have feared. So there's no room for fear at the end of the day, right? So I love that, Courtney.